Hi everyone, I want to try to do a part 2 to my last video because I still have a lot more that I want to try to explain about this table. And as I explained in my last video, Bible code wisdom is no longer on the internet, so the only way to share a table at this point is just to show one that I've done before in my previous videos. But as I had explained in my last video, looking back in hindsight at this particular table, there's a lot more to it that I wanted to try to explain, and there was a lot of terms that I went over in the original video. It was actually a 3-part video, and so these were some of the other terms that were in the table. But this was on the April wheat field Pentecost, and in this particular part of the video I had added the terms Ruth, King, Wed, and Lion. I just wanted to show you, it's interesting where you have the word Ruth coming up because it's right over here in the light green with the letters R, U, T, H. I couldn't get the word Boaz to come up, but as you can see I put in the word King and it came up. But if you look at the word Ruth, you see that it's coming right next to the word Jehovah, which is the name for God in the Old Testament, and Jashu or Yashu, which is short for Yeshua. And as I said, this was coming up in Isaiah 6 and 7. Okay, this was part of the name Shir Jashab. You can see that right here, but you can see the name Yashu right in the middle of that, which would be the name Yeshua in the Hebrew. But this is right where it's talking about the fuller's field, which is what I want to talk more about. You can see that right here. It mentions the fuller's field. I have it highlighted, and it's right underneath where it says at the end of the conduit of the upper pool, and the conduit is Hezekiah's tunnel. So this is at the end of Hezekiah's tunnel at the upper pool, which was the pool of Shalom that it's talking about, that I did videos about. And so right over here you have Ruth intersecting with Jehovah, running right through the middle of it or touching against it right in the middle of it, and a word that contains the word Yashu, which is a form of the name Yeshua in the Hebrew. But the full name Shir Jashab is very important as well, because if you look at the meaning of this word, it actually means a remnant shall return. So this is referring to the remnant. And another thing that's really important is that this was Isaiah's son, which I want to talk a little bit more about, because his son is mentioned again in the next chapter, but it has a different name for his son there. But he's saying to meet Ahaz, and Ahaz was Hezekiah's father. He was the king before Hezekiah. And it's interesting if you look at the meaning of the name Ahaz, because I've talked about this before I knew anything about Hezekiah's tunnel or anything. I just knew that the name Ahaz was connected with the number 27 or 271. There's also some videos that have been done by Blessed Hope channel where he talks about the number 127 and how it means, or it's the gematria for the word birth and conception in the Hebrew, as well as I believe there's another term that means that as well. And they're all connected to the number 127, and I talked about how it was in Genesis 1:27 that God created Adam, and how the number 27 represents the birth or the second coming of Christ in the scriptures. And then I happened to notice some videos that were done by Blessed Hope 2018 channel where he talks about this number as well, the gematria of it, except it was 127. But over here you see the number 27, so you have 271. And Ahaz means he has grasped. In other words, it means to take possession or seize, which is what the word rapture means. It comes from this other term, which is 270, which means the same thing. It means to grasp, take hold, seize. So this is a number for the rapture. Okay, so it's saying over here, then the Lord said to Isaiah, go forth and meet Ahaz, which means rapture, thou and Shir Jashab, which means the remnant shall return, thy son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field. And I'll just show you a picture of that. Okay, this would be where Hezekiah's tunnel is, and over here you would see the upper pool. And I showed some videos where they talked about the pool of Siloam and how it was discovered that it's actually further down, further southeast, and there was another pool that was built later. But you can also see this cross section of Hezekiah's tunnel, so you could see how he dug it underground, and then you could see the end of the conduit over here. And so if you look at the entire complex with the temple, you see the temple is located here, and then there's a wall that goes around. I'll show you the wall, but if you look at this diagram, which is an overview, you can see the entire complex with the temple. And the way I found this image was I had put in Ezekiel 47 temple threshold, because I was trying to explain, which I never finished doing. I wanted to explain Ezekiel chapters 46 through 48, especially chapters 46 and 47, how that's a description of the consummation of the covenant. And I wasn't even aware of these images yet. I was just trying to see how the water flowed from the temple threshold, and that's how I found this diagram. I wasn't even aware that there was a spring here, the Gihon spring. And then I saw some other images, such as this one here, which shows Hezekiah's tunnel as well as the Gihon spring. And actually this one over here is showing how they discovered that the old pool of Siloam, the original pool at the end of the conduit, was a little bit further down than where they currently have what's considered to be the Siloam pool. And I showed some videos about that. And so the original Siloam pool would be somewhere further down, further more southeast in this location. Okay, so you have an image here of the entire complex with both pools, the upper pool and then the lower pool, which would be the pool of Siloam and the Gihon spring, and you can see how it all converges. And the way I found these images originally was when I was doing some research on the book of Ruth, and I wanted to verify the location of the threshing floor. I wanted to make sure that the threshing floor was on the Temple Mount, and I remembered that there was a story in the Bible how David had purchased the threshing floor and that it was called Mount Moriah. So I just wanted to verify that, so I put in City of David and Mount Moriah just to see where the threshing floor was located. You can see the threshing floor right here. It's on the Temple Mount. So I just wanted to verify that that's where this story takes place, on the threshing floor of the Temple Mount. And so that's how I found these images originally. So it's interesting that you have Ruth coming up in this table right here, right next to the fuller's field. Okay, I just wanted to show you the video by Blessed Hope. It was called The Mysterious Number 271. So I guess it was 271 rather than 127. Okay, and he was also talking about how 271 days is an average conception, and he had done some research during the time of the birth of Christ in 9/11, 3 BC, I believe, is the date that he was using over here, and 271 days before that was Hanukkah, and then 270 days after that was Shavuot in 3 BC, 3 to 2 BC. And like I said, I've done videos on the number 27, the importance of the number 27. I did one recently. It was about May 27th, where I talked all about that and how the number 27 represents the birth or the second coming of Christ. And you can see that the Strong's number is 271 for a word that means rapture. It comes from another word which also means rapture, which is 270. Okay, so it's interesting that this table is about a confederacy that comes against Israel, and it's in Isaiah 7:1 is where it begins, which makes number 17 backwards. But as I've mentioned before, the fuller's field is also mentioned in 2 Kings 18, verse 17, which looks like 2018, the year 2018, starting in verse 17. It's mentioned again here in Isaiah 7:3, which could be interpreted as 3 sevens, as in the Hebrew year 777. And so I wanted to talk about what these two chapters have in common, as well as Isaiah 22, which I talked about in my last video, the key of David. And one of the things that they have in common is this person right here, which is the son of Hilkiah, which was a master in Hezekiah's household, and he was sent in 2 Kings 18, verse 17, to meet with this confederacy with the king of Assyria. And it says over here, I'll just read it. It says, nevertheless, the king of Assyria sent the Tartan, the Rapsaris, and the Rabshakeh along with a great army from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. They advanced up to Jerusalem and stationed themselves by the aqueduct of the upper pool, which is by the highway to the fuller's field. Then they called for the king, and Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, which represents Christ, as you can see in Isaiah 22:22, the palace administrator, Shebna the scribe, and Johan the son of Asaph, the recorder, went out to them. So this is where they sent out Eliakim to meet with the king of Assyria and his army at the end of the conduit of the fuller's field. Okay, and then when you go back to this table over here that was coming up in Isaiah 7, you have a very similar circumstance here. You have a confederacy going against Israel, and over here it says, Jehovah said unto Isaiah, go forth now to meet Ahaz, thou and Shear-Jashub thy son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field. So this time Isaiah and his son, which contains the name Yeshua, or a form of the name Yeshua within it, but the full name means thy remnant will return, and he sends them out to meet Ahaz, which means rapture, at the end of the conduit, which is the pool of Siloam, which is the fuller's field. And I've talked about how the fuller's field means to make white or to whiten. Over here it's called the launderer's field, so it means to wash clean or to make white, just like the fine white linen. And so this is a representation of the restoration. It's a representation of the rapture. It's interesting that this comes up in verse 18. And it's recorded in 2 Kings 18, which looks like the year 2018, starting in verse 17. But then it looks like the restoration takes place in verse 18. But then if you go to Isaiah 7, you have this confederacy starting with verse 1, which looks like the number 17 backwards. But it continues in Isaiah 8. And I'll just read from here. It says, moreover, the Lord said unto me, take thee a great roll and write in it with a man's pen concerning Maher-Shalal-Habaz. And this is like the longest name in the entire Bible. And this also means a remnant will return. So this makes the number 18 backwards, but I'll just show you what it means right here. And this time, this is the name for Isaiah's son. But you see over here it says, swift is booty, speedy is prey. And it says here it's a symbolic name given by Isaiah by the Lord's direction to Isaiah's son. Prophetic indication that Damascus and Syria were soon to be plundered by the king of Assyria. And I want to talk a little bit more about that because that's in Isaiah 17. So you have another connection there. But I just want to show you that according to Wikipedia, this name is also prophetic, meaning the remnant shall return. And you can see that explained here. It explains how it's originally, his name was Shear-Jashub. But I'm about out of time, so I'll have to continue in the next video. Thanks for watching, and God bless you.